Hello, my name is Paul Wilshaw. I am a learned disabled producer, assistant producer at Mind the Gap, a podcaster and co-producer on the Disability and podcast, a collaboration between Mind the Gap and Disability Arts Online. I've had the privilege of previewing back-to-back film Shadow, which is the film version of their theatre show, The Shadow Who Preyed the Hunter Becomes. So I will say what I enjoyed about the film, some of my own personal opinions, which are of an adult nature, that the film brings up, and things that I found either put me off as an audience or that needed to be thought about. I hope you enjoy the review, and please remember this is just my own opinion. As the film does state, we have a right to our own opinions and feelings. At the beginning of the film, there's a person that puts tape on the floor, and when the camera zooms out, I think the marking looks like a speech bubble, and there is certainly a lot to talk about in this film. I like the opening of the film as it opens up to a conference space. It's very recognizable of everyone talking and what you might expect from a conference to be like. Then you meet four of the actors in the show: Scott, Sarah, Simon, and Mark. The way they introduced three of the characters was talking about sexual consent and that there are right places where you can touch yourself and wrong places where you can touch yourself, and talks about the workplace and being at home. Straight away, you knew the film was not going to shy away from difficult topics, which I think is great. However, the way the person of Scott came across at the beginning was a bit of a know-it-all and self-opinionated, and I did not warm up to the character until later on in the film. I also found that the character of Mark was talked down to, which I didn't like. However, along the film, you see Mark's personality through the screen, and straight away I warmed to him, and I would personally like to meet him. After this, you then see Simon, and he's being interviewed by a TV crew. And he said he's like the mayor of the town, and people come to him with their problems. Then Scott talks to the TV crew, and they ask him a question, and he says he wants to talk for people who don't have a voice, and that's called disability activism, and storms off. There's a scene which is near to the beginning where Sarah forgets what she was going to say and asks someone else to speak up. But the scene really, for me, opens up the conversation on how do you support conversations to happen where everyone has a voice and not one person takes over in a room, but also respecting maybe a person doesn't want to talk, but just listen, and that is okay too. But don't treat anyone like they are less able than anyone else. We all have our own ways of communicating. Right after this, a topic that I have a major conversation about with my friends was brought up, and that is language and what they were going to call each other at the beginning. Now, Australia uses the word intellectual disability, and personally, I don't like that word because I've got a learning disability. I'm still very intelligent. I've just got a learning disability. But in each country, they have their own way of speaking, and that's the way that Australia talks about disabilities. It's interesting I say that because Sarah said that she's not intellectually disabled, and she doesn't like the word disability as it doesn't describe her. and she doesn't like it and brings up the word neurodiverse and says it describes everyone. That's also really interesting because I don't describe myself as neurodiverse, and so it doesn't describe everyone. Also, the fact of that neurodiverse has become a word that a lot of people in the arts will use, and also casting directors. And it feels like the word learning disability and neurodiverse has been clumped up together, which is okay if you understand the differences, but a lot of the times you will find out that a person does not understand the difference, and that's where confusion around language comes from. It's better to find out how a person wants to describe themselves rather than just clumping everyone into one group and thinking that that's okay. The film does have some light moments after that, but then it turns into a TED talk about the exploitation of learned disabled people in history and also the present day, about how people were being tied to beds, kept in cellars, devalued, victimized, dehumanized, sterilized, and euthanized, as well as other words. There was a line that I thought personally was unnecessary, and that was, geez, with all that, I'm amazed anyone turned up at all tonight. That comment saddened me and angered me at the same time. But I know this is how some people feel. The film then goes on to talk about Ireland and the last of Magdalene Laundries, which closed down in 1996. I was only 10 then when this place closed down, and how these workhouses imprisoned many women with intellectual disabilities, and how the nuns made them clean laundry for the state. I was 10. That still shocks me. During this piece, it also goes into how Mark might not understand what is being said and talked about. I liked how Sarah stood up for him and said, "You're talking like he's not in the room." I see this so many times because someone has a learning disability that people think we don't understand what is going on, instead of actually talking to us like they would any other person. There's a line in the film saying, "He's childlike." And once again, Sarah stands up for Mark and says he is an adult. Maybe just don't use jargon language and find better ways of communicating. And then you'll get the whole group involved. Give people time also as a person to think. That's all they might need. The show then goes on to talking around the Hasbro factory and how the factory exploited learned disabled people in making board games so many people played with, like Monopoly, Mousetrap, Fat Chance, Word of Fortune, and so many more. It's hard to think about how some of the games I used to play and enjoy was of the expectation of learned disabled people. Like I said, there are so many topics the film tries to deal with, but I wanted to mention how the company talks about artificial intelligence and deals with it in a scene. I totally understand where the film is going here, and I can see the positives and negatives about artificial technology. I liked how technology helped Scott open up to how he was feeling, and this made me warm up to him more. But also how artificial technology is taking over, and we have lost a way of talking to each other. The end of the film is good. There is a really powerful speech at the end of the conference that really makes you think about more people in the future having a learning disability or intellectual disability. I wish that's where the film had stopped. But after that, you see Sarah and Scott go upstairs and chat. It's interesting, but felt like it was opening up another topic, which was interesting and powerful to talk about around celebrities and sexual exploitations. But I felt that it wasn't necessary and actually didn't help the conversation along. There's a really nice soundtrack with this film, which I really liked. However, on some scenes, I would rather have just listened to the words that the characters were saying and not had the music. Also, the subtitling is in yellow at the bottom of the screen, which was hard for me to read. My overall view of the film is that it's hard-hitting and to the point. However, the film does try to cover too much and could be done in smaller chunks, like a mini-series, talking about different topics. I would thoroughly recommend watching the film if it comes out in the United Kingdom. If you're in Australia, please watch it. As an eye-opener for non-disabled and disabled people, and topics like these need to be discussed in our communities. I had the pleasure of interviewing back-to-back for the Disability and podcast, so please give that a listen. And it is on Mind the Gap's website, Disability Arts Online website, and on Spotify. Thank you so much for listening to this review and watching this review. Take care.